A very warm welcome to IDFC First Bank presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 12. I'm Ritwika Gupta and this is our Republic Day special episode. Now, India will celebrate its 76th Republic Day on 26 January 2025, marking remarkable progress both economically and in its journey as a vibrant democracy. Tonight on the show, we'll be bringing you a very special conversation on India's economic standing and the role of MSMEs as the backbone driving the country to new heights. I'll be shortly joined in the studio by Lakshmi Venkataraman Venkatesan. She's the daughter of R. Venkataraman, former President of India, and is currently the founder and Managing Trustee of Bharatiya Yuva Shakti Trust, BYST. Welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, Lakshmi. It's a pleasure to be chatting with you today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So Lakshmi, as you know, we are having this conversation in line with Republic Day. And I want to begin this interview by asking you to give us your assessment. How does India's current economic standing influence its position on the global stage?
There's so many things that is good and that we can be proud of. The fact that we are almost at $4 trillion in the economy, 3.9, and we are growing at 6%, one of the largest, highest growth rate in the world, and we are well poised towards that magic number, the $5 trillion economy that we are all aspiring to, and that we believe is squarely going to put us even more on the map. And if you see, FDIs are flowing in. Exports, there are challenges, but still are on the rise. And if you ask, the fact that the Indian currency is being now adopted by almost 22 countries, and we are trying to internationalize the rupee. I mean, this is something that we would have never been able to think of, let's say, 20 years ago. So in all of that sense, I think India's role in the global economy is catching a lot of attention. The challenge, of course, is that how do we create opportunities within the country, particularly for young people, because jobless growth is a nightmare for almost all countries globally. And whether it is developed or developing countries, jobless growth has become the bane of a growing economy. So while the good news is that things are moving very well economically, the challenge is how do you make this benefit through job creation the entire population?
Absolutely. Just zooming in a little bit, tell me, what is your assessment of the MSME sector here in India?
MSME sector has had a very vital role, and I've had one not just today, but literally from the 50s and 60s. If you look back, you would think that India was one of the first few developing countries that decided that the focus on job creation and creating small businesses was an integral part of our growth. It's not just all about steel companies and cement and so on and so forth, that MSME was important. So to some extent, the vision that the early leaders had about MSME is bearing fruit now. It is, of course, we all know that it's 30% of GDP and almost 45% of both manufacturing and exports. But the latest news about MSME is the fact that today they're also an integral part of the innovation ladder, because very often when we think of MSMEs, we tend to think of it as a brick and mortar. But more than 10,000 SMEs are tech-driven. And technology startups are the places where innovation happens, where you're talking about cutting edge, getting new patents, getting new ideas in software and hardware and so on. In the private sector, we have angel investments, which have played an important role in India. And last year in the budget, some of the regulations governing and the taxation governing angel investment was lifted, much to the delight of angel investors.
Yeah.
And therefore, MSMEs have also played an important role there. But the most important role, if you think of in MSMEs with respect to India, and it's true in many developing countries, is their ability to create jobs. Outside of the agricultural sector, it's really the MSME that creates the most number of jobs in the country. And within that, it's the micro sector. More than 98.5% of MSMEs are micros. There are more than 64 million MSME units, and out of that 98.5% are micro units. And micro units are therefore the biggest job creator outside of agriculture. Having said that, the micro units and the MSMEs on the whole quite often are not the most efficient in terms of job creation and wealth creation.
Right.
So there is a huge contribution that they make, but there is also a huge opportunity to make them more dynamic, to make them more productive, to make them more efficient, so that their contribution becomes commensurate with the numbers.
Sure, I hear you. MSMEs are indeed the backbone of India's economy. But tell me something, what are the key challenges? You mentioned micro entrepreneurs. What are the key challenges faced by micro entrepreneurs today, and how is an organization like yours helping to tackle these?
Let's take the first thing. If you were to go and start a business, whether it's you or me, leave alone a micro unit starting in the rural areas, first thing you need is money. So when we talk about access to credit, that becomes the biggest challenge. Second, access to timely credit. If you were to go and ask for a 3 lakh loan and it takes 6 months or 8 months to get it, your opportunity may be lost. And then the quantum of credit. Very often when MSMEs go there, especially if it is a debt lending unit like a bank, the first thing is to say is, how much can I scale it down so that it is more comfortable for me as a lender?
Yeah.
Because NPS are high in the MSME sector, and let's face it. So very often if you go for, especially the micro, when they go for a 5 lakh loan, they may get 2.5 lakhs. Now when you undercapitalize in the very beginning, then very often this becomes a issue that they don't even take off, and even if they take off, they run aground within a year because they don't have enough capital. Mudra, for example, is an excellent scheme, and so many millions of young people and women particularly have got access to Mudra loans. Sure. But the average Mudra loan is somewhere between 40 and 50,000. And the minimum you need to create a micro unit is about 3 to 5 lakhs. So why is the lending not happening? Very often asked that, then you look at the other side of the coin and you look at the actual entrepreneurs, the MSME unit that's getting started in the micros, their ability to know how to conceive of an idea and take that idea and formulate it into a viable business plan that will be deemed credit worthy by the bank. So if you were the bank and I were to come to you, you must be able to have enough confidence that I know what I'm doing and that I also know enough how to sustain myself so that whatever money you lend to me will be returned to you. The last but not the least is also the ability to have regulations that are meaningful for the small businesses. Very often when we talk about in a budget, very often what comes up is there are so many regulations, can we do away with this? How do we streamline it and so on and so forth? And then people say, well, there were hundreds of regulations, now it's only tens of regulations. But if you look at it from a startup micro entrepreneur, they do not know how to navigate even 1 or 2 or 3 regulations. So it's not the number sometimes, it is what is it for, and how do you again handhold the startup and or the MSME such that they know how to navigate through that.
Absolutely, and you spoke about regulations. Budget is around the corner. What are your expectations from policymakers, especially when it comes to the MSME sector?
When it comes to the MSME sector, as we said, job creation is upfront and center for any government in any part of the world, because you do want to make sure that the youth is fully engaged. And as you know, in India, more than 2/3 of the unemployed is coming from youth. So I would like to see some budget proposals that is youth-centric. Sure. women-centric, yes, but youth-centric. So many incubators in our country need far better mentoring. And I'll tell you, even we do mentoring even in large institutions. For example, we tell the bankers, you want a lower NPA? Don't just lend, mentor. And therefore, we are doing mentor training for bankers. We are doing mentor training in educational institutions. Being able to support young people at the right time, in the right way, at the right place, can be only a win-win situation for the entire country.
It's time for a quick break here. We'll be back shortly. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 12. This is our Republic Day special episode where we are decoding India's position as a global hub for innovation and entrepreneurship. Speaking of India's digital public infrastructure, I think India has shown tremendous progress, especially over the last couple of years, with UPI and Aadhaar. Tell me, what is your assessment of India's digital economy, and can we really become a leading global digital economy?
If you look at, again, I will try to go from bottom up to the top, because from the top down, of course, digital infrastructure is India is proud of one of the ways in which we have leapfrogged so many other countries in the kind of digital infrastructure we have been able to create. And some of our financial payments, apps has become the model for the rest of the country, or of the rest of the world. But once again, let's ask, what does that mean for the MSMEs and what does it mean for the micro entrepreneurs? Digital the use of digital technology it requires digital presence, digital payments, and e-commerce, digital marketing. These are the three ways in which a digital, being empowered digitally will enable you to do a better business. We need networks that actually enable, once again, the rural entrepreneur, the small entrepreneur, the startup, to be able to jump onto the ONDC, for example, is one of the government networks, but that is yet to penetrate the entire country. It's a good start, but we need to do that more. If you talk about digital payments, how many people, if you ask, have opened up a bank account, but then again they have zero balance and not being able to use it. So the fact whether it's digital or not digital becomes a secondary issue because some of the basic issues have not been resolved.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is a momentum that has been created, but I completely agree with you that needs to trickle down to the grassroots level as well. But tell me, what is your take on women's participation, especially in the MSME sector? What are your thoughts on women-led MSMEs?
I think there is a bit of confusion there, because on the one hand, women are extremely good in diligently returning their loans. They have some of the lower NPAs.
Okay.
And yet 85% of the women who apply for bank loans did not get it, according to our survey done 2 years ago. 85%. So why, if women are so good at repayment, will they not get access to it?
Why?
This is one of the I would say the mysteries that it shouldn't be a mystery. It should not be this way, but unfortunately it is.
Is there a typical perception that they might not be able to return it? But I mean, if statistics say that they are able to, then...
Well, sometimes, if we have to now talk about it. If you're talking about those loans that require collateral and security, very often women don't have anything in their name, so they don't have collateral, right? Of course, you would say that the Mudra loan is all primarily women, so on that sense, it's a collateral free security, no security required loan. But having said that, they have very, very small loans. Women are very good listeners.
Sure.
And therefore, when you mentor an entrepreneur, a woman entrepreneur, she takes it to her heart and actually executes and in a way turns out to be far more successful than some, a male counterpart who may hesitate and have his own ideas and sometimes not really follow through as diligently. So women repay well, women listen well, therefore women can grow well. So now we have to start believing in women more.
Lakshmi, tell me, how has your father, the late Mr. R. Venkataraman's work in small-scale industries influenced your approach?
Let me say that interestingly enough, when I was growing up, and he was at that time the industries minister in Tamil Nadu, I visited so many small industries at a time when I was still very young, probably 8 or 10, and I didn't know much about what a business was. Yeah. But the very fact that he deemed it important for young people to become exposed to, and I was one of the young persons he thought that I should be exposed to. So I have been to the Guindy Industrial Estate, the Ambattur Industrial Estate, all kinds of places which normally children are not necessarily seen in.
Yeah.
And therefore, but what interested me is that, there's a picture of my father with Nehru, who, when he visited the Guindy Industrial Estate somewhere in the 50s. And at that time, when we had just come out of our, just gotten independence and we were finding our feet in the industrial arena, nobody in India made spectacle frames, eyeglass frames. Nobody to make safety pins. Nobody was making matchsticks. You name it, there was nothing on the ground. But I'll tell you what went beyond that, because then by the time I started this, my father was the President of India, and therefore this was beyond what he did. Actually, I saw a program with the then Prince of Wales, Prince Charles, when I had gone with my father, and and we were for a state visit in the UK. And Prince Charles at that time had started a huge program for underprivileged young people, where he had partnered with the private sector to give mentors. It was a fascinating program, and His Royal Highness at that time, His Majesty now, asked me at that time, do you think this will work in India? And that's how this whole idea started, because I said, I don't know, sir, I have to find out. And I came here.
Tell us a little bit about the model, the entrepreneurship model by Prince Charles.
The entrepreneurship model is very interesting. Essentially, it says that ideas can come from anywhere. Now, it may look like something which is common today, but 30, 40 years ago, people thought ideas only came from colleges and universities and so on, not from the grassroots in this level. So the idea was to find young people who had passion, a vision, and an idea, simple idea. And then to be able to then give them access to that credit and support them with the mentors.
Right.
So when I came, when he said, can you start? I came here and I said, well, this is a huge country and our situation is very different.
Yeah.
And I myself am an engineer, and I was working in the US in a research firm. I had no real concept of what this would mean in India. So I needed a mentor. So one of the mentors that I was very, very fortunate to be able to talk to was J.R.D. Tata. But what is interesting is, since then, we from India, our mentors have gone to Russia to help set it up. I've gone to Brazil, to Argentina, to South Africa, to to our own neighbors, Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. Yeah. The way in which this model applies over and over again to so many countries, that fact that we are in 45 countries, speaks to the robustness of this model, and the way in which it has been able to produce results in every country that it has. So we in India, I'm one of the founding members of this international network, which we are so happy to say that entrepreneurs at one time during the pandemic we had on Zoom from Barbados, Moscow, I think it was Pune, and England. Wow. So the diverse nature of this, of the entrepreneurs, the diversity of the entrepreneurs within this country in India and globally, means that it's a model that has really proven itself over time and over geographic space.
Fantastic. And finally, Lakshmi, tell us, what is your long-term vision for BYST, and how do you see it contributing to India's MSME sector and really the India growth story in the long term?
Today, the micro sector and micro entrepreneur in India today creates 1 to 2 jobs. Mm-hmm. With our mentoring, they create 10 direct and 40 indirect. They create 50 jobs, every micro entrepreneur. The only difference is A model that supports them, that mentors them, that handholds them, that provides them the kind of ecosystem that they deserve and need, versus not having that. If every one of our mentors, what is the crux of our model? The mentoring, which then supports them, helps them get the funds, gets them everything. So a mentor is like at the core of this model. Every mentor can support at least 5 entrepreneurs. So if we have 200,000 mentors, they can support 1 million entrepreneurs. 1 million entrepreneurs can create 50 million jobs. You need 1 to 2 crore jobs every year in India in order to, that many people are coming into the workforce looking for jobs.
Sure.
You know, in a country like India, but funnily enough, even in the US, even in an advanced country, underemployment is becoming a very major issue, which we really need to tackle with. It's not just about having jobs. It is having jobs that are sustainable, having jobs that really use the skill set of the person. We have created 20,000 mentors around the country, and I think we just have to multiply it now by 10 to make it 200,000. But the scope is there, and if 45 other countries are also following similar ideas and they're all finding successes, I think we owe it to ourselves to really give this experiment, I wouldn't say experiment, to really give this model our everything, because I do believe that the youth is our demographic dividend in India.
Well, more power to you. All the very best. Thank you so much for being on ET Now Leaders of Tomorrow. It was a pleasure chatting with you, Lakshmi.
Thank you very much for having me, and I hope that many of our budding entrepreneurs will be part of your wonderful show, because it really reaches out to a lot of MSMEs.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 12. We hope you enjoyed the episode. On behalf of ET Now Leaders of Tomorrow, wishing you all a very happy Republic Day. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.